Okay, hello everybody. Just want to quickly record a session on your lesson 17 from Sage 300 2000 textbook, and this regarded is for ACCT 204 accounting course. So my last recording I did was on lesson 18, where you guys learned about different setups that you have to do in Sage 300 in regards to account receivable. So now today on this virtual class, what I'm trying to give you guys a brief summary of how the lesson 17 need to be done on a computer. So lesson 17 focused on customer maintenance. So the customer maintenance has three important informations that need to be covered. First is how to create a customer groups. So I'm using a file which has already completed chapter 17 because this is just a brief summary of what these three things that you need to do from lesson 17. So if you're doing it by yourself, you need to pick up your file from end of lesson 16 and continue that on lesson 17. But what I'm encouraging my class to do is that you start with end of lesson 14 and complete your lesson 16, and then jump on lesson 17 and complete the customer settings on your own file, and then you don't need my file to start lesson 17. So there are three main information. There are main three topics that you guys need to cover from lesson 17. First is creating a customer groups. So the way the Sage 300 works is that every time you are setting up a module, before you create profiles, the system requires you to create groups. So in regards to account receivable, so if you wanted to create a profile, before you create a profile, you have to link that profile to a particular group. So you require to at least have one customer group. So if you are a small business and you don't have too many of different kinds of customers, you can just simply create a default customer group, and whatever your company's policy is in regards to the account receivable, you can do that. And then next thing that you want to do is, if you go and then you have separate groups that you want to create a profile, what you can do is you can create a customer profile. For example, you're doing a business in Canada and all of a sudden you start getting more customers in US. You can create a different group, and with that you can link it to a separate GL account, and then create different terms for that group, different tax codes. You can set up all those things when you create a customer group. So the way the customer groups are being created is everything that you're doing in this account receivable, they're done under account receivable module, which is right here. So to create the groups, what you need to do is you need to go to account receivable, and here's your customer groups. So you click on customer groups, and it takes you to the customer group window. Okay, it's taking a little bit of time. Let's wait. Okay, so here's your customer group, and now what you need to do is you need to create a customer group. You name the code, you put a description to it, you set up the account set, you set up the terms code, and then set up the billing cycle, interest profile, and so forth. And once you finish doing that, what you do is you go into the credit. If you want to set up a different credit for the customer, for invoicing, if you have a separate salesman that you want to set up, you can do that. And if you have one tax code that's applicable for the particular group, that you can set up here. So I'm going to show you the one that's already in the system. So I'm creating an electronic Canadian customer. So I put a code, and I put a description to the code, and I say, this is related to my account set, which I created in the previous chapter, and the term for these customers are 30, and the billing cycle, so I have a billing cycle that's for Canadian customer. They are every 30 days, which is monthly. So I set up the billing cycle as Canadian, and then I have an interest profile created for this division, which is at a 15%. So that means I charge 15% interest on anybody that's overdue. But this was done in the previous chapter. So now what I'm doing is I'm linking those ones to this group. Then I go to the credit. So by default, all the customers that I'm enrolling into this group will have a default credit of $5,000 for invoicing. So now, if you have a particular a salesman who is associated or directly responsible for this group, you can put that customer here, but you don't have to. And if you know that this group only belongs to one text group, you can select up that group here. But if you don't, then you will just create text profiles for each text group to each customer profile that you will create. Okay, so a similar way you can just create new and then keep adding more groups that you want. Okay, so that's your customer groups. So if I click on a browser, you see that there are 4 different groups that are created. You can create as many groups that you want. Once you finish, you click save and close. Once you have the customer groups created, then you go and click on the customers. So when you come into the customer, right here, what you do is you put a code, you give a number to a customer, you put the name of the customer. The important information is the group. So once you pick up the group, everything that you set up for the group will be automatically selected. And then you put the address that you have, the contact person, processing. See, these are the information that will be automatically picked up based on what you have set up for that particular group that you linked it right here. But that doesn't mean you have to follow exactly the same. You can change depending on this particular profile that you're creating. Go to invoicing. So if you know this customer is in Ontario, you can set up a tax group as Ontario, so it automatically pick up the tax code as an Ontario tax code and you do the business when you create an invoice. Statistics, this is a good information, so this will keep track of all the customer information that you have done with all the transactions that you have done with that particular customer. Same thing with the activity, tells you some of the key points related to a particular customer. So that way you can, if you want to create more, you can just click on a plus icon right here and then you keep recording more and more customers as you need it. Okay, once you finish, you click close. So once your customers are created, you have all the customers, then there's a ship to location as well. So ship to location is if you have multiple customers who have customers who have multiple locations to be shipped, you can create ship to locations for different customers. So if you have a different address for ship locations, you can select, for example, this customer has Brampton, Mississauga, Toronto, so you can put the locations, description, and put the address here. So anytime you do a sale, you can pick up the address that you want to pick for that particular customer for a shipment. This is a great feature that you can use in this software. So these are 3 things that you guys need to know from chapter 17. And once you finish, if you want to print any reports in regards to 3 things that you have done, you can go into account receivable and print the customer group that you want to print. Print a particular customer, you can click right here and print that particular customer as well. So this will be the end of the lesson 17. So students who wanted to complete this chapter and have the software installed on your computer, you start with the end of lesson 14 and then complete lesson 16 and 17 together. Okay, and students who don't have the software installed, I suggest you guys to make your notes as I'm recording this video and then go through the chapter, make sure each exercise you look at very carefully and understand these concepts and get familiar with the screens that are shown up on this chapter. Okay, so thank you everybody and see you guys there.